Hi, I'm Captain Steve Chaconis, and welcome to the National Bass Fishing Show. One of the most aggravating things that when you're swimming a jig or flipping a jig, or whether you've got any kind of bait keeper that's molded in, whether it's a spinner bait or a buzz bait, and you've got this bait keeper molded in, this little lead thing that's molded in, and that you're asking that little nub to hold your bait on when you rip it from the grass or when a fish has a hold of the end of it. You're asking a lot for that. So I add a bait keeper that's much better than the lead one that's molded in. That way I could take all of my jigs, but for my swim baits, my swim jigs, anything where I'm using a trailer, always using a trailer, and it won't come off. It won't slide off when I snap it through the grass or when a fish grabs a hold of it or when I'm casting it or when I get snagged. It's going to stay on there. Now I just use a couple of things. This is spinnerbait wire. Spinnerbait wire comes in a lot of diameters, anywhere from 0.035 to 0.040 inches. Take your pick. I like the 040. It's a little bit stiffer. And this is just a bit of spinnerbait wire that I had left over when I broke a spinnerbait, and I just kept the parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the very tip of this, okay? I'm going to bend it and usually use the width of the pliers, okay? That's a good measurement, and sometimes a little bit more. If you make it too long, you can always go back and snip it off. But for now, we're going to go ahead and bend it about a 45-degree angle. Now, how long do we make this? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take our jig, and by the way, this is one that used to be red, and we powder coated it using Stardust. Stardust is amazing stuff. You can get it from lurepartsonline.com. It's great if you're on the water and you've run out of a color or you want to change a color. This used to be red. We've gone ahead and made it brown. Now, I'm going to measure this. So I'm going to put this barb. I want this barb to be right about there. Can you see that? I want the barb to be there. So I'm going to make it that long. So now I'm going to take it and cut it. And we'll just cut that end off. Yeah, okay, it's off. Now, how are we going to get that onto this jig and keep it there? Heat shrink tubing, that's it. The smallest I could find. It just barely goes over the hook point, goes around the bend of the hook. We're going to use that, and we're going to measure how much we need again the same way by putting it on the hook, eyeballing where it is. I'm going to cut it using scissors. By the way, as a left-hander growing up as a kid, learning how to use right-handed scissors was punishment enough. That's why us left-handers are so good at doing everything with either hand. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off, and now I've got that little bit of heat shrink tubing. And I'm going to slide it on the hook. Just roll it up. Okay, slide it on the hook. And once we get it up here, you see it just sits there. It's not going to go anywhere. Now I'm going to take the barb that we made, this little spinnerbait wire that we cut, bent that little end on, and I'm going to insert it into the heat shrink tubing. And once I do that, it doesn't matter where it is now, but I'm going to have it hanging down like this, okay? That's where that barb is going to be. So it's going to have the lead one and that wire one in there. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but now you're going to use your lighter and heat it up and heat that heat shrink tubing. And when you heat it, it shrinks. And when it shrinks, it stays on there and keeps that keeper in place for you. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. Look at that. Now I've got a bait keeper added to any bait, a jig. Even if the jig already has one molded in, you want another one just to make sure that thing doesn't come off. You could add a drop of super glue if you want, whatever. Sometimes I leave a little bend of the wire at the very end so it doesn't slide back and forth, but this is on there pretty dang good. It won't come off. It'll help keep that bait on. So try that. It's basically heat shrink tubing, bending the spinnerbait wire, putting it on there, taking your lighter, heating it up, and that heat shrink will shrink and form a bond right there, and that wire will stay on there for you and help you keep more bait so you keep on fishing. I'm Captain Steve Chaconis. Hope you like this little tip. If you'll tell your friends about us, and please ask them to subscribe. This is how we keep things going around here. We'll see you next time on the National Bass Fishing Show.